Picture this: a mild-mannered high school chemistry teacher discovers he's dying of cancer. Desperate to leave money for his family, he starts cooking methamphetamine in an RV in the desert. But here's the problem that kept viewers glued to their screens for 5 seasons. How do you explain where millions of dollars in drug money came from without ending up in handcuffs? Welcome to Money and Mayhem. Today, we're diving into the shadowy world that Breaking Bad only scratched the surface of. Because while Walter White's car wash was fictional, the techniques he used, they're disturbingly real, and they're happening right under our noses. I'm your host, and over the next 5 chapters, we're going to pull back the curtain on the most sophisticated financial crime on the planet. We'll discover how a simple pizza delivery turns into a money laundering operation, why your local nail salon might be washing more than just cuticles, and how criminals have turned the entire global financial system into their personal washing machine. But first, let's start where it all began, with a car wash in Albuquerque that taught millions of viewers the dark art of making dirty money clean. The birth of a launderer. Remember the A1A car wash? Walter White didn't choose it randomly. In Breaking Bad, this suburban car wash becomes the perfect front for washing drug money, and the show's creators did their homework. Car washes are actually one of the most popular money laundering fronts in real life, and there's a genius reason why. Think about it: a car wash is a cash-heavy business. Customers pay with crumpled bills, there's no inventory to track, and who's going to question whether you washed 100 cars today or 300? It's the perfect cover for inflating your income. But here's where fiction meets reality in the most chilling way possible. While Walter White was learning to launder money on our screens, real-world criminals were taking notes. The 3-step dance. Every money laundering scheme, whether it's run by a fictional meth cook or a real cartel boss, follows the same 3-step process. And once you understand these steps, you'll never look at certain businesses the same way again. Step 1: placement. This is where the dirty money enters the legitimate financial system. In Breaking Bad, Walt literally places stacks of cash into the car wash's daily receipts. In real life, this might be a restaurant owner adding phantom customers to their books, or a retail store inventing sales that never happened. Step 2: layering. Here's where it gets sophisticated. The money needs to be moved around, disguised, and separated from its criminal source. Walt does this by creating fake transactions, moving money between accounts, and creating a paper trail that looks legitimate. Real criminals use shell companies, cryptocurrency trades, and complex international transfers to create so many layers that even forensic accountants get lost in the maze. Step 3: integration. The final step. The dirty money comes out clean on the other side. Walt can now buy expensive cars, pay for his son's website domain, and live a lifestyle that matches his new, legitimate income from the car wash. The money is now virtually impossible to trace back to its criminal origins. The psychology of the perfect crime. But here's what Breaking Bad got absolutely right about money laundering: it's not just about the money. It's about the psychology. Walter White wasn't just washing drug money, he was washing his identity. Every fake receipt, every fabricated transaction, every lie told to Skyler was another step away from the mild-mannered teacher and deeper into the criminal underworld. And this psychological transformation happens in real life too. Financial crimes investigators will tell you that money laundering changes people. It starts with small lies, fake receipts, inflated numbers. But as the amounts grow larger and the schemes become more complex, the launderer becomes completely divorced from legitimate business thinking. The $2 trillion problem. Now here's the truly terrifying part. The United Nations estimates that between $800 billion and $2 trillion is laundered globally every year. That's not just Breaking Bad money, that's more than the GDP of most countries. and the techniques that seem so clever and original in the show. They're child's play compared to what's happening in the real world. While Walt was struggling to explain $16 million in drug money, real money launderers are moving billions through legitimate banks, using methods so sophisticated that they make the A1A car wash look like a lemonade stand. So the next time you drive past a car wash, a nail salon, or a restaurant that never seems to have customers but somehow stays in business, remember Walter White's lesson. Sometimes the most ordinary businesses are hiding the most extraordinary crimes. But we've only scratched the surface of this criminal underworld. In Chapter 2, we're going to explore how real-world money launderers make Walter White look like an amateur. We'll discover the underground networks that move dirty money across continents, the legitimate businesses that serve as unwitting accomplices, and the cat-and-mouse game between criminals and the authorities trying to stop them. Because while Breaking Bad may have ended, the real-world money laundering game is bigger, more dangerous, and more profitable than anything Vince Gilligan ever imagined. What if I told you that right now, there's a company that owns a $50 million Manhattan penthouse, 3 luxury yachts, and a private jet, but this company has no employees, no office, no website, and technically doesn't exist anywhere except on a piece of paper filed in Delaware? If Walter White's car wash was money laundering 101, then what we're about to explore is the PhD program. We're entering the world of shell companies, the phantom businesses that make billions of dollars vanish into thin air, only to reappear squeaky clean on the other side. And here's the kicker: everything we're about to discuss is completely legal, until it isn't. In our last chapter, we saw how Breaking Bad's Walter White used a simple car wash to launder his drug money. But real-world money launderers, they've built entire empires that exist only in the digital realm. Companies that own companies that own companies, creating a maze so complex that even the FBI gets lost trying to follow the money trail. Today, we're going to expose the Phantom Empire, the invisible network of shell companies that makes Walter White's operation look like a kid's lemonade stand. And by the end of this chapter, you'll understand why some of the world's most expensive real estate is owned by companies that don't actually exist. The birth of a ghost. Picture this: for just $99 and about 15 minutes of paperwork, you can create a company in Delaware that has more privacy protection than a Swiss bank account. You don't need to provide your real name, you don't need an office, and you don't even need to be a U.S. citizen. This company, let's call it Sunrise Holdings LLC, can then open bank accounts, buy property, and conduct business worth millions of dollars. And here's the beautiful part for money launderers. If someone tries to investigate who really owns Sunrise Holdings, they'll hit a wall of legal privacy protections that would make the CIA jealous. But we're just getting started. Because one shell company is amateur hour. The professionals create what investigators call matryoshka structures, like Russian nesting dolls, but with companies instead of wooden figures. The nesting doll nightmare. Here's how it works. Sunrise Holdings LLC is owned by Mountain View Investments, which is owned by Pacific Trust Services, which is owned by a foundation in Liechtenstein, which is controlled by a trust in the Cayman Islands, which is managed by a law firm in Panama that claims attorney-client privilege. Confused? That's the point. Real investigators have traced shell company structures that go 15 layers deep across 8 different countries. By the time you follow the paper trail from the penthouse in Manhattan to the actual human being who owns it, you've traveled through more jurisdictions than an international spy thriller. And here's the genius part: each layer is technically legal. Each shell company files its proper paperwork, pays its fees, and operates within the law. It's only when you step back and see the entire structure that you realize you're looking at a money laundering machine. The $50 million Invisible Man. Let me tell you about a real case that will blow your mind. In 2014, investigators discovered that some of the most expensive real estate in New York City was owned by companies that didn't exist. We're talking about penthouses, luxury condos, and commercial properties worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The owners? Complete ghosts. One $50 million penthouse was owned by a company registered to a virtual office in Delaware. That company was owned by another company registered to a P.O. box in Nevada. That company was owned by a trust in the British Virgin Islands. The trust was controlled by a foundation in Panama. After months of investigation, authorities finally traced the real owner, a corrupt foreign official who had embezzled hundreds of millions from his country's treasury. But here's the kicker: by the time they figured it out, the money had already been moved, the properties had been sold, and the shell companies had been dissolved. The Phantom Empire had done its job perfectly. The digital revolution. But wait, it gets worse. If traditional shell companies are the horse and buggy of money laundering, then cryptocurrency and digital assets are the Tesla Model S. Modern money launderers don't just create phantom companies, they create entire digital ecosystems. They'll create a shell company that owns a cryptocurrency exchange, which trades digital assets created by another shell company, which are then sold to investors through a third shell company. The beauty of this system: the money never actually moves. It's all just digital entries in computer systems, moving from one virtual wallet to another, leaving a trail that's virtually impossible to follow. The enablers. Now here's what really should keep you up at night: none of this happens in a vacuum. The Phantom Empire doesn't run itself. It needs enablers, lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, and bankers who ask no questions and see no evil. These aren't criminal masterminds. They're ordinary professionals who've discovered that there's serious money to be made in willful ignorance. A lawyer who sets up shell companies for $5,000 a pop. An accountant who manages books for companies that have no real business. A real estate agent who sells million-dollar properties to buyers who exist only on paper. The scariest part? Most of these enablers convince themselves they're not doing anything wrong. After all, shell companies are legal. Privacy is a right. And if someone wants to structure their business in a complex way, well, that's just good financial planning, right? The cat and mouse game. But authorities aren't sitting idle. Financial intelligence units around the world are getting smarter, using artificial intelligence to spot suspicious patterns and trace money through even the most complex shell company structures. They're looking for red flags, companies that exist only on paper, businesses with no employees or real operations, and financial transactions that make no business sense. They're mapping networks of shell companies and identifying the professional enablers who set them up. But here's the problem: for every new detection method authorities develop, money launderers develop 3 new ways to hide their tracks. It's a technological arms race, and the criminals have a head start. The global impact. The Phantom Empire isn't just about rich people avoiding taxes. We're talking about drug cartels laundering billions in narcotics profits, terrorists financing attacks, and corrupt officials stealing money meant for hospitals and schools. The World Bank estimates that developing countries lose $1 trillion annually to corruption and illicit financial flows, money that could build schools, hospitals, and infrastructure. Instead, it disappears into the Phantom Empire, only to reappear as luxury real estate in London, New York, and Miami. So the next time you see a skyscraper with half-empty floors, or a luxury store that never seems to have customers, remember the Phantom Empire. Behind every suspicious business might be a web of shell companies so complex that even the people who created them have lost track of who owns what. But we've only explored the tip of the iceberg. In Chapter 3, we're going to dive into the legitimate businesses that have become unwitting soldiers in the money laundering army. We'll discover how your favorite restaurant, your local casino, and even your corner store might be unknowingly helping criminals wash billions in dirty money. Because the Phantom Empire needs foot soldiers, and they're hiding in plain sight. If this deep dive into the Phantom Empire has left you questioning every business you see, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We're just getting started with Money and Mayhem, and the rabbit hole goes much deeper than you imagine. Chapter 3: The Unwitting Army: How Legends of Laundering Conquered Legitimate Business. What do a luxury jewelry store in London, a chain of laundromats in Miami, and a series of high-end restaurants in New York have in common? They were all unknowingly washing money for some of the most notorious criminals in history. Welcome back to Money and Mayhem. Today, we're going to meet the legends, the money laundering masterminds who didn't just break the system, they rewrote the rulebook. We're talking about Pablo Escobar, who literally buried millions in the ground because he couldn't launder it fast enough. General Sani Abacha, who turned an entire nation into his personal money washing machine. And Diazani Alison Madouk, who showed the world how to turn government oil deals into global shopping sprees. But here's the twist: none of them could have done it without an unwitting army of legitimate businesses that became their foot soldiers, often without even knowing it. In our previous chapters, we explored the basics with Walter White's car wash and the Phantom Empire of shell companies. But today, we're entering the big leagues, the real-world criminal masterminds who laundered billions through legitimate businesses, turning everyday companies into unwitting weapons of financial warfare. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand how a simple pizza restaurant can become a money laundering machine, why luxury goods are a criminal's best friend, and how some of history's most notorious money launderers built empires that span continents. The king of cocaine's $70 million problem. Let's start with the godfather of money laundering, Pablo Escobar. At the height of his power, the Medellin cartel was earning $70 million per day. That's nearly $26 billion per year in today's money. But here's the problem that would make Walter White's head spin: when you're making that much money in cash, laundering it becomes harder than earning it. Escobar's solution. He turned legitimate businesses into money-washing machines on an industrial scale. His favorite target? Chain restaurants and fast food joints. Think about it, restaurants are perfect for money laundering because they're cash-heavy businesses with high turnover. A restaurant that normally serves 200 customers a day could easily claim to have served 500 customers, inflating their income by 150% with no one the wiser. Escobar owned or controlled hundreds of legitimate businesses across Colombia: restaurants, construction companies, soccer teams, even a zoo. Each one became a channel for washing drug money. The construction companies built legitimate buildings with drug money. The restaurants served real food while reporting fictional profits. The soccer team genuinely played matches while secretly funded by cocaine billions. But here's the genius part. Most of the employees and managers of these businesses had no idea they were working for a money laundering operation. They showed up to work, served customers, and went home, completely unaware they were part of the largest money laundering empire in history. The general who stole a country. But if Escobar was the king of drug money laundering, then General Sani Abacha was the emperor of corruption-based money laundering. During his 5-year rule of Nigeria from 1993 to 1998, Abacha didn't just steal money, he turned the entire Nigerian government into his personal money laundering machine. Here's how audacious Abacha was. He would award fake government contracts to shell companies he secretly controlled, then use those companies to invoice the Nigerian government for work that was never done. The government would pay the invoices with oil money, and Abacha would transfer the funds to banks in Switzerland, London, and New York. But the real genius was in the layering. Abacha didn't just steal and run, he created a web of legitimate businesses to wash the money. He bought real estate in London through shell companies. He purchased luxury goods through high-end retailers who thought they were dealing with legitimate Nigerian businessmen. He even bought a private jet through a leasing company that had no idea the ultimate source of the funds. The scale was breathtaking. Investigators eventually traced over $5 billion in stolen Nigerian oil money through banks and businesses in more than 30 countries. And here's the kicker, most of the banks and businesses involved were completely legitimate institutions that had no idea they were handling stolen money. The oil minister's global shopping network. But for sheer sophistication, few money laundering operations can match the empire built by Diazani Alison Maduka, Nigeria's former petroleum minister. While Abacha used brute force, Alison Maduka used surgical precision to turn luxury shopping into an art form of money laundering. Her method was brilliant in its simplicity. She would award inflated oil contracts to shell companies, then use the excess payments to fund a global network of luxury purchases. But unlike typical money launderers, she didn't just buy expensive items, she turned luxury retailers into unwitting partners in her scheme. Here's how it worked. Alison Maduka would send associates to high-end jewelry stores in London, New York, and Dubai. These associates would purchase millions of dollars worth of jewelry, watches, and luxury goods using funds from legitimate-looking shell companies. The retailers saw well-dressed customers with proper bank transfers and authentic paperwork. They had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. But the genius was in the network effect. She didn't just use one or two stores, she spread the purchases across dozens of luxury retailers, art galleries, and high-end boutiques. Each individual purchase looked normal, but collectively, they represented a sophisticated money laundering operation that moved hundreds of millions of dollars. The result? Investigator found luxury properties in London, New York, and Dubai, jewelry worth millions, and a collection of art and luxury goods that read like a catalog of the world's most expensive stores. And almost every retailer involved was a legitimate business that thought they were serving a wealthy Nigerian businesswoman. The laundromat king of New York. But you don't need to be a drug lord or a corrupt politician to master money laundering. Meet the unsung hero of the legitimate business money laundering world, the humble laundromat owner who became one of New York's most successful money launderers. This wasn't Pablo Escobar-level billions, we're talking about a mid-level operation that laundered only $50 million per year. But the sophistication was remarkable. The laundromat owner didn't just wash clothes, he washed money from local drug dealers, illegal gambling operations, and underground businesses throughout New York. His secret? He understood that legitimate businesses are the perfect cover for money laundering because they have natural explanations for cash flow. A laundromat handles hundreds of cash transactions daily, making it easy to blend illegal money with legitimate income. But here's where it gets clever, he didn't just use his own laundromats. He created a network of seemingly independent businesses, a pizza restaurant, a grocery store, a check cashing service, that were all secretly connected. Money would flow between these businesses in ways that looked completely legitimate on paper. The pizza restaurant would purchase supplies from the grocery store. The grocery store would hire the laundromat for cleaning services. The check cashing service would lend money to the pizza restaurant for equipment purchases. Each transaction was documented, taxed, and completely legal, but the entire network was designed to wash dirty money. The cryptocurrency revolution. But modern money launderers have taken the legitimate business model to the next level with cryptocurrency. Today's criminals don't just infiltrate existing businesses, they create entire legitimate-looking ecosystems. Take the case of the Bitcoin exchange that looked completely legitimate. Professional website, proper licensing, real customer service, genuine cryptocurrency trades. Thousands of legitimate customers used the exchange for legal transactions. But buried in the millions of legitimate trades were carefully orchestrated money laundering operations. The genius was in the volume. When you're processing thousands of legitimate transactions daily, a few hundred money laundering transactions become invisible. The exchange provided a service that real customers wanted, making it the perfect cover for washing dirty money. The enabler economy. But here's what should really terrify you. None of these operations could exist without what investigators call the enabler economy, the vast network of legitimate professionals who make money laundering possible. We're talking about lawyers who set up shell companies without asking questions. Accountants who manage books for businesses that make no economic sense. Real estate agents who sell properties to buyers who exist only on paper. Bankers who process transactions without conducting proper due diligence. These aren't criminal masterminds, they're ordinary professionals who've discovered there's serious money to be made in willful ignorance. A lawyer might earn $50,000 per year doing regular legal work, but $500,000 per year setting up shell companies for privacy-conscious clients. The scary part? Most of these enablers convince themselves they're not doing anything wrong. They're just providing professional services to clients who value their privacy. They're not responsible for what their clients do with the structures they create. The digital transformation. But today's money laundering operations make Pablo Escobar look like an amateur. Modern criminals don't just use legitimate businesses, they create entire digital ecosystems that exist simultaneously in the legitimate and criminal worlds. They'll create a legitimate e-commerce platform that sells real products to real customers. But buried in the millions of legitimate transactions are carefully orchestrated money laundering operations. The platform processes real orders, ships real products, and pays real taxes, making it nearly impossible to distinguish between legitimate and criminal activity. The result is a money laundering system that's not just sophisticated, it's useful. Real customers get real products, real businesses make real profits, and real taxes are paid to real governments. The only difference is that some of the money flowing through the system came from criminal sources. The global impact. The scale of this problem is staggering. Every year, trillions of dollars in criminal money flows through legitimate businesses around the world. That's money from drug trafficking, human trafficking, corruption, and terrorism, all being washed through businesses that look completely normal. And here's the kicker, this isn't just about criminals getting rich. When legitimate businesses unknowingly participate in money laundering, they're competing unfairly against businesses that operate completely legally. A restaurant that's secretly washing drug money can afford to charge lower prices because their real revenue comes from criminal sources. So the next time you see a business that seems too successful for its location, or a restaurant that's always empty but never closes, remember the legends we've discussed today. Behind every suspicious business might be a sophisticated money laundering operation that would make Pablo Escobar proud. But we've only scratched the surface of how deep this rabbit hole goes. In Chapter 4, we're going to explore the cutting edge of money laundering, how cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, and digital assets are creating new frontiers for financial crime that make everything we discuss today look like ancient history. Because while the legends of the past used restaurants and laundromats, the criminals of today are building virtual empires that exist only in cyberspace. Chapter 4, The Digital Revolution, How Cryptocurrency Changed the Money Laundering Game Forever. Imagine Pablo Escobar's reaction if someone told him that in 2024, you could move $100 million across the globe in under 10 minutes, with no banks, no paperwork, and virtually no way to trace it back to you. He'd probably laugh. After all, he was literally burying billions in cash because moving money was so difficult. Welcome back to Money and Mayhem. If everything we've covered so far is the Stone Age of money laundering, then what we're about to explore is the Space Age. We're diving into the digital revolution that's turned every smartphone into a potential money laundering machine, and every teenager with a crypto wallet into a more sophisticated criminal than the cartels of the 1980s. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand why law enforcement agencies around the world are losing sleep over technology that was supposed to make finance more transparent. From Walter White's car wash to Allison Moore's shopping sprees, we've seen how money laundering has evolved over decades. But everything changed in 2009 when an anonymous person called Satoshi Nakamoto launched something called Bitcoin. In just 15 years, cryptocurrency has gone from a nerdy experiment to a $2 trillion market that's completely revolutionized how criminals move money. We're talking about techniques so sophisticated that they make shell companies look like child's play, and methods so advanced that even the FBI admits they're struggling to keep up. Today, we're going to explore the dark side of the digital revolution, and discover why the future of money laundering is already here. The birth of digital crime. Let's start with the basics. Bitcoin was designed to be the opposite of everything we've discussed so far. Instead of hiding money through complex shell companies and legitimate businesses, Bitcoin promised complete transparency. Every transaction would be recorded on a public ledger called the blockchain, visible to anyone, anywhere, forever. Sounds like a money launderer's nightmare, right? Wrong. Here's what the creators didn't anticipate. While Bitcoin transactions are transparent, Bitcoin addresses are anonymous. You can see that wallet 1A2B3C4D5E sent $1 million to wallet 6F7G8H9I0J, but you have no idea who actually owns those wallets. It's like having a completely transparent bank where you can see every transaction, but all the account holders are wearing masks. The Silk Road Revolution. The first criminal masterminds to realize Bitcoin's potential weren't traditional money launderers, they were tech-savvy drug dealers operating on the dark web. The Silk Road, launched in 2011, became the Amazon of illegal drugs, and Bitcoin was its currency. But here's where it gets interesting. Silk Road wasn't just selling drugs, it was inadvertently creating the world's most sophisticated money laundering system. Drug dealers would receive Bitcoin. Or, the digital revolution, how cryptocurrency changed the money laundering game forever. Imagine Pablo Escobar's reaction if someone told him that in 2024, you could move $100 million across the globe in under 10 minutes, with no banks, no paperwork, and virtually no way to trace it back to you. He'd probably laugh. After all, he was literally burying billions in cash because moving money was so difficult. Welcome back to Money and Mayhem. If everything we've covered so far is the Stone Age of money laundering, then what we're about to explore is the Space Age. We're diving into the digital revolution that's turned every smartphone into a potential money laundering machine, and every teenager with a crypto wallet into a more sophisticated criminal than the cartels of the 1980s. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand why law enforcement agencies around the world are losing sleep over a technology that was supposed to make finance more transparent. From Walter White's car wash to Allison Moore's shopping sprees, we've seen how money laundering has evolved over decades. But everything changed in 2009 when an anonymous person called Satoshi Nakamoto launched something called Bitcoin. In just 15 years, cryptocurrency has gone from a nerdy experiment to a $2 trillion market that's completely revolutionized how criminals move money. We're talking about techniques so sophisticated that they make shell companies look like child's play, and methods so advanced that even the FBI admits they're struggling to keep up. Today, we're going to explore the dark side of the digital revolution, and discover why the future of money laundering is already here. The birth of digital crime. Let's start with the basics. Bitcoin was designed to be the opposite of everything we've discussed so far. Instead of hiding money through complex shell companies and legitimate businesses, Bitcoin promised complete transparency. Every transaction would be recorded on a public ledger called the blockchain, visible to anyone, anywhere, forever. Sounds like a money launderer's nightmare, right? Wrong. Here's what the creators didn't anticipate. While Bitcoin transactions are transparent, Bitcoin addresses are anonymous. You can see that wallet 1A2B3C4D5E sent $1 million to wallet 6F7G8H9I0J, but you have no idea who actually owns those wallets. It's like having a completely transparent bank where you can see every transaction, but all the account holders are wearing masks. The Silk Road Revolution. The first criminal masterminds to realize Bitcoin's potential weren't traditional money launderers, they were tech-savvy drug dealers operating on the dark web. The Silk Road, launched in 2011, became the Amazon of illegal drugs, and Bitcoin was its currency. But here's where it gets interesting. Silk Road wasn't just selling drugs, it was inadvertently creating the world's most sophisticated money laundering system. Drug dealers would receive Bitcoin payments, which they then needed to convert back to cash without getting caught. This created an entire ecosystem of Bitcoin laundering services. Mixers that would scramble Bitcoin transactions to make them untraceable. Tumblers that would break large amounts into thousands of small transactions. And exchanges that would convert Bitcoin to cash with no questions asked. By the time law enforcement shut down Silk Road in 2013, they had inadvertently created a blueprint for digital money laundering that criminals are still using today. The mixing machine. Let's talk about Bitcoin mixers, the most elegant money laundering tool ever created. Imagine you have $1 million in Bitcoin that you need to clean. You send it to a mixing service along with hundreds of other criminals doing the same thing. The mixer takes everyone's dirty Bitcoin, breaks it into thousands of small amounts, shuffles them around through hundreds of different addresses, then sends you back clean Bitcoin equal to your original amount, minus a small fee. It's like throwing your dirty laundry into a giant washing machine with everyone else's clothes, then getting back clean clothes that are impossible to trace back to you. The most sophisticated mixers use techniques that would make computer scientists weep with admiration. They'll spread transactions across multiple cryptocurrencies, route them through dozens of exchanges, and create timing patterns that defeat even the most advanced blockchain analysis. The North Korean heist machine. But the real masters of cryptocurrency money laundering aren't drug dealers or traditional criminals, they're nation-states. North Korea's Lazarus Group has turned cryptocurrency theft into an art form, stealing over $3 billion in digital assets since 2017. Here's their playbook. They'll hack a cryptocurrency exchange, steal millions in Bitcoin or Ethereum, then immediately start an incredibly sophisticated laundering process. They'll use dozens of different mixing services, convert between multiple cryptocurrencies, and route transactions through exchanges in dozens of countries. The 2022 Ronin network hack shows just how advanced they've become. They stole $625 million in cryptocurrency, then spent months methodically laundering it through a process so complex that investigators are still trying to trace all the money. The scariest part? They're getting better at it. Each hack teaches them new techniques, and they're now moving stolen cryptocurrency so efficiently that they're converting it to cash faster than investigators can freeze it. The DeFi Wild West. But traditional Bitcoin mixing is child's play compared to what's happening in DeFi, decentralized finance. DeFi protocols allow you to lend, borrow, and trade cryptocurrencies without any central authority or identity verification. Here's where it gets terrifying. You can now launder money through systems that have no human oversight whatsoever. Smart contracts automatically execute complex financial transactions based on pre-programmed rules, with no ability for anyone to intervene or investigate. Criminals are using flash loans to borrow millions of dollars in cryptocurrency,
use it to manipulate markets or execute trades, then repay the loan, all within a single blockchain transaction that takes seconds to complete. The entire process is automated, anonymous, and virtually untraceable. It's like having a bank that operates entirely by robot, with no human employees, no oversight, and no ability to freeze suspicious transactions. The stablecoin shuffle. While Bitcoin gets all the attention, the real money laundering innovation is happening with stablecoins, cryptocurrencies designed to maintain a stable value against the dollar. Tether, the largest stablecoin, processes over $50 billion in transactions daily. That's more than most countries' entire economies. And here's the kicker. Most of these transactions happen with minimal oversight or reporting requirements. Criminals love stablecoins because they combine the anonymity of cryptocurrency with the stability of traditional money. You can move $100 million in Tether across the globe in minutes, with fees of less than $1, and no bank will ever know about it. The most sophisticated operations use stablecoins as the backbone of complex laundering schemes. They'll convert dirty fiat currency to stablecoins, route it through multiple DeFi protocols, then convert it back to clean fiat currency in a different jurisdiction. The AI-powered future. But even DeFi and stablecoins are becoming obsolete. The cutting edge of money laundering is now powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning. AI-powered laundering systems can analyze thousands of cryptocurrency addresses, identify optimal mixing strategies, and automatically execute complex multi-step laundering processes. They can adapt to new law enforcement techniques in real time, learning from each successful transaction to improve their methods. Some systems can even predict which exchanges are about to implement new compliance measures and automatically route transactions away from them. It's like having a criminal mastermind that never sleeps, never makes mistakes, and gets smarter with every transaction. The regulatory race. Law enforcement isn't sitting idle. They're developing their own AI systems to track cryptocurrency transactions, identify suspicious patterns, and trace money through even the most complex laundering schemes. The result is a technological arms race between criminals and law enforcement, with both sides developing increasingly sophisticated tools. Blockchain analysis companies can now trace transactions through multiple mixing services. Law enforcement agencies are using machine learning to identify laundering patterns. And cryptocurrency exchanges are implementing AI-powered compliance systems. But here's the problem: the criminals have a head start, and they're not bound by budgets, regulations, or legal oversight. They can implement new techniques faster than law enforcement can develop countermeasures. The coming storm. Here's what should really worry you: everything we've discussed is just the beginning. Cryptocurrency is still in its infancy, and the technology is evolving at breakneck speed. Privacy coins like Monero and Scash are designed to be completely untraceable from the ground up. Layer 2 solutions are creating new ways to move money that are even harder to track. And quantum computing could eventually make current blockchain analysis techniques completely obsolete. We're heading toward a world where moving money anonymously will be as easy as sending an email, and law enforcement will be playing catch-up for decades. So remember, while Pablo Escobar was burying billions in cash fields, today's criminals are moving the same amounts through systems that exist only in cyberspace. They're using technology that's more sophisticated than anything intelligence agencies had access to just a decade ago. But our journey through the world of money laundering isn't over yet. In our final chapter, we're going to explore what all of this means for the future. We'll discover how money laundering is evolving, why traditional law enforcement is struggling to keep up, and what this means for the global economy. Because while the techniques have changed, the fundamental truth remains the same: as long as there's dirty money to be cleaned, criminals will find a way to do it. If this deep dive into digital money laundering has left you questioning the security of the entire financial system, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Our final chapter is going to reveal what the future holds for money laundering, and why the techniques we've explored are just the beginning. Chapter 5, The Future of Money Laundering, What Comes Next and Why We Should All Be Worried. What if I told you that by 2030, a single person with a smartphone could launder more money in one day than Pablo Escobar moved in his entire criminal career? What if I told you that the techniques we've explored over the past 4 chapters are already becoming obsolete, replaced by methods so advanced that they make cryptocurrency mixing look like counting change? Welcome to the final chapter of Money and Mayhem. We've journeyed from Walter White's fictional car wash to the very real world of AI-powered financial crime. Now, it's time to look into the crystal ball and see what's coming next. Because if you think money laundering is sophisticated now, you haven't seen anything yet. And the scariest part? The future is already here. Over the past 4 chapters, we've witnessed the evolution of money laundering from a simple car wash operation to a multi-trillion-dollar industry that touches every corner of the global economy. We've seen how shell companies create phantom empires, how legitimate businesses become unwitting accomplices, and how cryptocurrency has revolutionized financial crime. But here's the thing about evolution, it never stops. While we've been exploring the current state of money laundering, criminals have been developing the next generation of techniques. Methods so advanced, so sophisticated, and so integrated into emerging technologies that they could reshape the entire global financial system. Today, we're going to explore what's coming next, why current law enforcement methods are about to become obsolete, and what this means for all of us. The quantum leap forward. Let's start with the technology that's going to make everything we've discussed look primitive: quantum computing. While most people think of quantum computers as a distant future technology, they're already here, and criminals are already thinking about how to use them. Here's why quantum computing is a game changer for money laundering. Current blockchain analysis relies on cryptographic techniques that quantum computers can break in seconds. All those sophisticated tracking methods that law enforcement uses to trace cryptocurrency transactions, they'll become useless overnight. But it gets worse. Quantum computers will enable criminals to create unbreakable encryption, making their communications and transactions completely secure from government surveillance. They'll be able to simulate complex money laundering schemes before implementing them, testing millions of variations to find the perfect approach. Imagine Pablo Escobar with a quantum computer. He could have simulated every possible way to launder his billions, identified the optimal strategies, and executed them with mathematical precision. The cash he buried in fields, it could have been cleaned and invested in legitimate businesses within hours. The metaverse money wash. But quantum computing isn't the only game changer. The metaverse, virtual worlds where people interact using digital avatars, is creating entirely new opportunities for money laundering. In virtual worlds, you can buy and sell digital assets, real estate, and services using cryptocurrencies. But here's the kicker: these transactions happen in a completely virtual environment with minimal oversight or regulation. Criminals are already using virtual worlds to launder money. They'll buy virtual real estate with dirty cryptocurrency, develop it using criminal proceeds, then sell it to legitimate buyers for clean money. Or they'll create virtual businesses, casinos, art galleries, entertainment venues, that exist only in the metaverse but generate real revenue. The beauty of metaverse money laundering is that it's nearly impossible to investigate. How do you audit a business that exists only in a virtual world? How do you verify the authenticity of transactions between digital avatars? How do you even determine which jurisdictions laws apply? The AI criminal mastermind. Remember how we talked about AI-powered money laundering in the last chapter? That was just the beginning. The AI systems being developed now are so advanced that they're essentially criminal masterminds that never sleep, never make mistakes, and get smarter with every transaction. These AI systems can analyze global financial markets in real time, identifying opportunities for money laundering that human criminals would never spot. They can predict regulatory changes before they happen and automatically adjust their strategies. They can even create entirely new money laundering techniques by combining existing methods in ways that no human would think of. But here's what's truly terrifying: these AI systems are becoming autonomous. They don't need human instruction or oversight. They can identify dirty money, design optimal laundering strategies, and execute complex multi-step operations without any human involvement. It's like having a criminal organization that consists entirely of super-intelligent robots, each one capable of laundering billions of dollars while leaving no trace of their activities. The deepfake economy. Another emerging threat is the use of deepfake technology in money laundering. Deepfakes, AI-generated videos and audio that are indistinguishable from the real thing, are creating new ways to commit financial crimes. Criminals are using deepfakes to create fake identities for shell companies, complete with video conferences, phone calls, and document signing ceremonies. They're creating fake customer testimonials for legitimate businesses they're using as fronts. They're even using deepfakes to impersonate executives and authorize large financial transactions. The implications are staggering. How do you verify someone's identity when their face, voice, and mannerisms can be perfectly replicated by AI? How do you trust any video or audio evidence when it could be completely fabricated? The biological blockchain. But perhaps the most sci-fi development is the emergence of biological data in money laundering. Criminals are exploring ways to use DNA sequences, biometric data, and even genetic information as components of their laundering schemes. Imagine a money laundering system where your biological data serves as both the encryption key and the transaction record. Your DNA sequence could encode the details of a financial transaction, making it literally impossible to detect without access to your genetic information. This isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Companies are already storing data in DNA, and blockchain systems are being developed that use biological data as verification mechanisms. It's only a matter of time before criminals figure out how to exploit these technologies. The regulatory apocalypse. Here's where things get really scary. Regulators and law enforcement agencies are completely unprepared for what's coming. The techniques we've explored are evolving faster than governments can understand them, let alone regulate them. Think about it, it took regulators over a decade to figure out how to handle basic cryptocurrency transactions. Now they're facing quantum computing, AI-powered financial crime, metaverse economies, and biological data storage. The regulatory framework is already obsolete, and it's falling further behind every day. The result is a regulatory apocalypse where criminals have access to technologies that are decades ahead of law enforcement capabilities. It's like trying to catch a spaceship with a horse and buggy. The global economic impact. But this isn't just about catching criminals, it's about the stability of the entire global economy. When money laundering becomes this advanced, it stops being a crime problem and becomes an economic system problem. We're talking about a future where the majority of global financial transactions could be criminal in nature, but completely undetectable. Where legitimate businesses can't compete with criminal enterprises that have access to unlimited, untraceable funding. Where entire economies could be built on laundered money without anyone knowing. The World Bank already estimates that 2 to 5% of global GDP is laundered money. But with these new techniques, that percentage could skyrocket. We could be looking at a world where 20%, 30%, or even 50% of economic activity is based on criminal proceeds. The final lessons. So what have we learned from our journey through the world of money laundering? First, that financial crime is fundamentally about human psychology, not technology. Whether it's Walter White justifying his actions to provide for his family, or Alison Madook rationalizing her shopping sprees, criminals always find ways to justify their actions. Second, that the line between legitimate and criminal activity is often blurrier than we want to admit. The businesses that help launder money aren't evil corporations. Second, that the line between legitimate and criminal activity is often blurrier than we want to admit. The businesses that help launder money aren't evil corporations, they're often ordinary people making ordinary business decisions, willfully blind to the consequences. Third, that technology is a double-edged sword. Every innovation that makes legitimate financial transactions easier also makes criminal transactions easier. Every privacy protection that helps honest people also helps criminals hide their activities. And finally, that the future of money laundering isn't just about crime, it's about the future of money itself. As our financial system becomes more digital, more automated, and more complex, the opportunities for abuse multiply exponentially. The call to action. But here's the thing, awareness is the first step toward solutions. By understanding how money laundering works, we can better identify it, report it, and fight it. By recognizing the techniques criminals use, we can avoid becoming unwitting accomplices. The future of money laundering may be darker than we imagined, but it's not inevitable. Technology can be regulated, AI can be controlled, and criminals can be caught, but only if we stay ahead of the curve. The techniques we've explored in this series will continue to evolve, but the fundamental truth remains: money laundering exists because people let it exist. Every time someone chooses not to ask questions about a suspicious transaction, every time a business prioritizes profits over compliance, every time a regulator chooses to look the other way, the money laundering machine gets a little bit stronger. From Walter White's modest car wash to the AI-powered criminal empires of tomorrow, we've explored a world that most people never see but that affects everyone's life. We've met the criminals who've mastered the art of making dirty money clean, the businesses that have become unwitting accomplices, and the technologies that are reshaping financial crime. We've learned that money laundering isn't just about crime, it's about the nature of money itself, the psychology of human behavior, and the unintended consequences of technological progress. But most importantly, we've learned that the future isn't written yet. The techniques we've explored are powerful, but they're not unstoppable. The criminals we've met are sophisticated, but they're not invincible. And the technologies we've discussed are revolutionary, but they're not uncontrollable. The future of money laundering will be determined not by the criminals who exploit these systems, but by the rest of us who choose to understand them, regulate them, and fight back against them. The Money and Mayhem Legacy. As we conclude this series, remember that knowledge is power. You now understand more about money laundering than most law enforcement officers, more than most bankers, and certainly more than most criminals expect you to know. Use this knowledge. Q. Use this knowledge. Question suspicious transactions. Report unusual business practices. Support stronger financial regulations. And most importantly, never become an unwitting accomplice in the vast machine of global financial crime. The world of money laundering is complex, sophisticated, and constantly evolving. But it's not mysterious anymore. You've seen behind the curtain, and you know how the tricks work. Now it's up to you to decide what to do with that knowledge. If this deep dive into the secret world of money laundering has opened your eyes to the hidden criminal economy all around us, then we've accomplished our mission. But the conversation doesn't end here. Smash that like button if you've learned something that blew your mind over these 5 chapters. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need to understand these critical issues. Subscribe and ring that notification bell because the world of financial crime is constantly evolving, and we'll be here to break down the latest techniques, the biggest cases, and the most shocking revelations. The criminal masterminds aren't taking a break, and neither are we. Share this series with friends, family, and anyone who needs to understand how the global financial system really works. Knowledge is our best defense against financial crime, and the more people who understand these techniques, the harder it becomes for criminals to exploit them. Comment below and let us know which chapter shocked you the most. What questions do you still have about money laundering? And what other dark corners of the financial world should we explore next? From all of us at Money and Mayhem, thank you for joining us on this journey through the shadow economy. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, in the world of money laundering, the most dangerous criminals are the ones you never see coming. Until next time, keep watching, keep learning, and keep fighting the good fight.